Hello, hello, hello. I am Matt Williamson at Williamson NFL. Give me a follow on X, Twitter, all that good stuff. Check out my YouTube page. And we're going to dig in heavier into this game, as we always do a day removed. Starting with snap counts for the Steelers. There wasn't a lot of Raider stuff to really get into that was noteworthy snap count-wise. But out of a possible 67 offensive snaps, Fields, Jones, and McCormick were the only three that played all 67. Dan Moore missed 8 snaps. He played 59. Siamalu played 58. Freiermuth, 58. Darnell Washington, 49. Zach Frazier only lasted 48. And we'll get more news on that. Hopefully that's not terrible, but who knows? I'm concerned. Pickens played 45. Van Jefferson, 43. Najee, 31. Jalen Warren, 25. Connor Hayward, 24. Calvin Austin, 24. Ryan McCullum was forced into duty for 19. Scott Miller played 14. Spencer Anderson, in a variety of roles, played 11. Calvin Anderson played 9. Jonathan Ward, 6. Roman Wilson, only 5. Kind of thought he should be in there more late when this game was out of reach, but oh well, small potatoes. Shamklin played 4. Minkah played 2, and Rodney Williams played 2. Why did Minkah play 2? Well, that's what you do in victory formation. You put a good tackler that could track someone down if you had to. On the defensive side of the ball, 63, which is the most for Queen, Elliott, Porter. Gotta love it. Minkah played 47 or 57. 52 for Dante Jackson and TJ. Beanie Bishop was out there for 47. Jeremiah Moon played 45. 40 for Cam and Benton. 35 for Ogunjobi. 27. It's amazing how these two are almost always identical. Landon Roberts and Peyton Wilson, 27 each. Terrell Edmonds for 16. Ogundeji for 16. Leota for 13. Montravius Adams only 12. Pierre was out there for 10. 9 for Loudermilk. 6 for Dean Lowry. So nothing super noteworthy there except for some O-line injuries, and they'll give you some stuff here too. At the end of the game, they kind of put some other guys in a little bit, which reflected in that snap count stuff, but nothing super crazy there. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the NFL to college, BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game is over, head over to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and use promo code BLEAV, all caps, BLEAV, and get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, we're back. I have all sorts of random notes, but this kind of sums things up. I know that I talk EPA a lot, and some of you get it, and some of you kind of don't, but it breaks it down to what you did on a per-play basis. And the Steelers, basically every time they snapped the ball, was good for 0.161 points on the scoreboard. That's quite good. You're going to be above 0. So every time they snapped the ball, basically created 0.16 points. So their EPA was 0.161. This is terrible. The Raiders were negative 0.259. Really bad. I mean, they just played losing football is basically what that's telling you. Najee Harris has recorded, he had 14 carries for 104 yards and a touchdown in the Steelers win, resulting in his most rushing yards over expected in a single game of his career, plus 63. He gained fewer rushing yards than expected in every single game this season, entering this game, of course. leading to the third fewest rushing yards over expectations by any player in weeks 1 through 5. Really bad. I mean, like, he was minus 63 in rushing yards versus expectation. So that means like the average back would have got 63 more yards than Najee. But he was plus 63 in just this game alone. Meanwhile, this doesn't detract from what Harris did, but the Raiders have allowed a league high plus 231 rushing yards over expectation, which is 55 more than the second worst team. So terrible. So terrible. But their tackling, we'll get to their tackling too. Really horrible. Cam Hayward, somewhat of an unsung hero. I know that he's super loved, and I think people need to realize what he's doing right now. He was awesome in this game. And frankly, outside of maybe Chris Jones, Dexter Lawrence, maybe one or two more at most, he's pretty much been the best defensive tackle in football this season. That's how good he's been playing. Cam is back in a big way. And if you take last year out, which he was injured the whole time, basically, and shouldn't have been out there, I thought 2022 was his best season. This one might be better and aging like a fine wine. TJ Watt generated 3 pressures on 26 pass rushes matched up against DJ Glaze, including 2 that came under 2.5 seconds. He has generated multiple pressures in all but one game since the start of the 2023 season. That's insane. Watt was also active in the run game, of course, forcing 4 run stuffs and 2 fumbles while generating the fewest single game run stop EPA of all edge defenders over the past 3 seasons. That is monstrous. And Pro Football Focus backed that up. I got that from Next Gen NFL.com stuff. They made TJ Watt their player of the game. And here's what they said about him. Normally a game-wrecking pass rusher, TJ Watt was the game's best run defender by a wide margin. The Steelers' edge rusher made 4 tackles for loss and forced 2 fumbles in the ground game, earning a 96.0 PFF run defense grade after first reviews of the game. And I actually went back and looked at it. 96 out of 100 is like insane for them. And then I went and looked at it today, and that was after first review. I guess they double checked them all. He got a 99 out of 100. Well, like, he was like the best edge run defender that you've seen in years in this game. Insane. How many times yesterday did I say all they had was Bowers? All they had was Bowers. All they had was Bowers. We saw some Porter shadowing Bowers a little bit on throwing downs. I thought that was really interesting. New wrinkle for Porter. Yeah, he's going to struggle, obviously, from a physicality standpoint against Bowers, who's a problem for everybody. But I thought that was an interesting wrinkle. You know, that's something but we haven't seen from Porter on a tight end. Justin Fields has his most productive game as a scrambler this season, generating 53 yards and a touchdown on 6 scramble runs against the Raiders. He also found the end zone on a designed run late in the fourth quarter. As a passer, though, he was pressured on a season-high 58.8% of his dropbacks, thanks in part to recording the longest average time to throw in a game this season, 3.27 or 3.29 seconds. He completed 11 of 18 passes when the time to throw is over 2.5 seconds for 132 yards. So in the end, he was under pressure a lot in this game, and a lot of it's him still holding the ball. It's the same problems. I mean, 2 of the big issues with Fields before he got here were fumbles, taking sacks / pressures / holding the ball, and they're still out there. I guess I'll take this second to say this stuff too, but I'll probably spend more time on tomorrow's podcast. I recorded yesterday, basically is right when the last whistle hit, and said, I think you got to stick with Fields. I kind of take that back. I mean, after watching this game, the accuracy wasn't there. I was more in the Wilson camp going into this game, and I think I still am, but we'll talk more about that tomorrow. There were two delay of game penalties in this game. Is that on Fields? Is that on the coaching staff? Is it on Arthur Smith? I don't know, but it's too many. They still have too many procedural issues. I'll say that wrong pretty badly, which I think would be cleaned up more with Wilson. I'm not blaming Fields, but Wilson, I think, would be better with those type of things. The interception that Fields threw was a really, really bad one. It got called back. Lucky. That's great. But it was a bad throw, a bad decision. I just thought he was not accurate enough in his game, and maybe was his worst accuracy day as a Steeler. Also thought this was a tough Broderick Jones game. He was fine for some, but there's a handful of plays, it seems like every game with this guy, where it's a mental bust too. Like, just, he's blocking nobody, or let someone run right past him where it was clearly his guy. I mean, he's kind of a mess right now, considering how talented he is. Along those lines, Max Crosby generated 8 pressures and half a sack on 35 pass rushes against the Steelers, earning his highest pressure rate in a game over the past 3 seasons. Think about that. Max Crosby's one of the best edge defenders in the league, and this was his best pressure rate over the last 3 years. A lot of that is Fields holding the ball, but he did the majority of his damage lined up across from right tackle Broderick Jones. He had 5 pressures in 16 matchups against Jones. 4 of his pressures came under 2.5 seconds, which is remarkably quick. That's the most quick pressures Crosby's had in a single game over the last 2 years. Yikes. That's not a ringing endorsement of the former first-round pick for the Steelers. Powers Johnson, somebody we talked about a ton going into this game. He's now a guard for the Raiders. Had a tough day, and mostly because he had to deal with Cam Hayward. But I thought that'd be somebody you were interested in. Frazier was the center the Steelers obviously ended up with, but many people were in the Powers Johnson market as well, or, 3 good centers. He was one of them, but Powers Johnson had a really tough day against Cam. I thought Landon Roberts played an exceptional football game against the run. He was just a killer in the run game. Great to see. Not surprising, that's who he is, but yeah, you give the guy credit. I mean, don't just take these things for granted. The 2 backs, Shamplin and Ward, they only played 1 snap in the first 3 quarters. I should have probably brought this up when we were talking snap count stuff. On 3rd downs, Warren played 8 of a total 10 third downs. Najee played 1 of those, but it was really the Ward and Shamplin show in the 4th quarter when this game was out of reach. So they only played 1 snap in the first quarter between them. Along those lines, the Steelers had runs of 36, 26, 18, 15 yards, 3 of which were by Harris. The 18-yarder came from Fields, who also had a 14-yard scamper. Again, he was plus 4.5 rushing yards over expected per rush. It's like the average back would have got 4.5 less yards per rush attempt than what Najee did in this game. And he averaged 5.8 rushing yards per rush after contact. Wow. And this is maybe what I like best. 43% of his runs were between the tackles. None of this, much less of this wide, slow developing, get to the corner stuff. Get downhill and get this guy in his pads parallel to line of scrimmage and go. Much was made, by myself included, of Pickens' snaps not being in the top 2 receivers last week. Well, when they were in 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends, he played 12 out of 20 snaps. But when they threw the ball out of 12, he was out there for 8 of 10. Great. He also played 8 of 19 snaps in 13 personnel with only 1 receiver on the field. And they threw the ball 6 times out of 13 personnel. He was on the field for 4 of those. That's what you're looking for. Maybe even more, but that's what you're looking for. 2 other guys I didn't think had great days. were Darnell Washington. Not super concerned. I mean, a lot of his not great looks were against Crosby. Such is life. Connor Hayward. I get more and more questions every week about Connor Hayward in a negative manner as what's he really bringing to the table other than special teams value, which he has quite a bit of. But I understand where your guys are coming from on that. Like as an offensive player, does he really bring enough to be out there? Or as I like to say, is he one of those guys that the other team is happy he's on the field? Two guys on defense, I think lately teams are happy when they're on the field are Loudermilk and Lowry. I thought Lowry would be more of the Watts type from last year. He really hasn't. He hasn't made much of an impact. They kind of look at these two like they're replacement level defensive linemen at this stage. Want to call out a Raider that I thought did a lot of good things this game, just kept popping up, was Divine Diablo. Just a run and hit, nasty, fly around the field player. I thought he had a really good game. Mentioned EPA before. And on 3rd and 4th down, the Raiders were negative 1.06 EPA, which is just horrendous. I mean, it's really, really bad. And for quarterbacks, this is not per play. This is just, for the game. Oh, no, this is per play. I'm sorry. Fields EPA for the game, not for by play. I said that wrong. Was plus 8.5. Quite good. I mean, that incorporates his legs, everything. Where O'Connell was negative 1.7. Just to give you a discrepancy, if you don't understand EPA entirely, and it's not the easiest thing to understand, the fact that one of them was plus 8.5 and the other one was negative 1.7 kind of tells you all you need to know. Fields was pressured on 59% of his dropbacks, and the Raiders blitzed 38% of the time, which is pretty high. Not through the roof high, but pretty high. One thing that really showed up in this game, major difference in tackling. Man, the Raiders were a horrendous tackling team. Some of it was effort, some of it's bad angles, all the above. Some of it's Najee Harris being no fun to tackle. Of course. Steelers were exceptional tackling in this game. Bowers they'd get it to him quick and get him in space and try to make plays on him. Steelers bottled him up very, very quickly. So that was a huge discrepancy in this game. Talking about Fields scrambling, almost 17% of his dropbacks resulted in a scramble. It's not good or bad, but only 69% of his dropbacks ended up in a target, where I throw the ball to Freiermuth, he gets a target. Like some of them could be, there's a variety of things that could happen. Sacks, pass batted down, things of that nature. But only 69% of the dropbacks actually got the ball to a target as planned, which you would think that number would always be in the 90%. It's not. That sounds worse than it is, but it isn't great. That first possession from the Raiders was 70 yards on 10 plays. Never even had to convert a third down during that possession, so walked right down the field with no resistance. But they allowed 6 first downs on that drive. Again, none of them even got the third down. The Steelers only gave up 3 first downs on the next 6 possessions combined. So they let up 6 first downs on the first possession, 3 on the next 6. They had 70 yards on that opening possession and 55 on the next 6. And it was over. Meanwhile, the Steelers scored points on 7 of 10 drives, and that did not include the kneel down to end the game. Last little nugget here, a little special teams thing. This was obviously a good special teams day for the Steelers. And AJ Cole, I am not a punter expert, never will be, is considered one of the best punters in the league and has had a very, very good career. This was the first punt of his career that was ever blocked. So harder to block a punt of good guys, but I'm not saying it's on Cole, but I just found that interesting. Little tidbit. There you have it. Pulling back the curtain, it is Monday evening, And I am psyched to watch the Jets, the upcoming opponent tonight. So maybe we'll have some comments on that on tomorrow's podcast, get a feel for them a little bit more. And I assume I will mailbag it for next podcast as well. That's been fun. All right, over and out.